Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming out. We're very excited about the crowd that we have. My name is Steve Hunt. I am with RH Events Catering, and we are based out of the Metro Atlanta area. And we thought it'd be interesting to share what we do. We're a little niche when it comes to what we do from our catering standpoint, and it comes from our kind of the genesis. We started out, and my partner here we'll get into more of his history, but we started out as a company picnic company and evolved into doing a lot more large events and catering. So 29,450 is the largest event that we do, attendees. Sounds great. We did an event for the Falcons. We're based in Atlanta. We did an event for the Falcons, and she reminded me they do 100,000 people. So kind of humbling, but 29,450, this is the event. What we're experts in is really a lot logistics in that it's 21 locations. This happens to be a hospital chain in Metro Atlanta area. 21 locations and 41 shifts. So that's what we do. We are a nationwide company, and we travel around, and we're known for shift works, large numbers, locations, and how to manage those things. We operate out of a 14,000 square foot warehouse that has 5 or 6 truck bays in it. So we'll talk more about the equipment, the things that we use there, but that's what we do. And this is a sample of that event, and I'll let Mary Evelyn take it from here.
Good morning. My name is Mary Evelyn Kirkland. I am the media manager with RH Events Catering, and I also want to take a moment to introduce our other founder, Reith, who is on the stage with us today. And as Steve mentioned, what you're getting here is a taste of one of our largest events that we do. So for the purpose of this session, we are defining large-scale catering as 1,000+ guests, but in reality at RH Events Catering, when we're talking about catering on a large scale, it really goes into several thousands, or several thousands across several shifts, weeks, days, and so forth there. So we have a couple different examples of that to share with you today. And one thing I want to offer too is that we are coming at this from the perspective of an events company that does catering. So we started as an events company specializing in company picnics and employee appreciation events. And of course, with that comes the catering, and that has become a bigger piece of our business as we've developed and grown here. But the perspective we're offering is looking at this catering event as an event as a whole, from the second the guests arrive until the second that they leave. What are they experiencing throughout it? And then also events that have catering with all of these other components, how do we fit all of that together? And so we hope by the end of this you'll gain some insight that you may not already have. And so before we get going too, I also want to get to know who's in the crowd with us. If I can just see a show of hands of who regularly caters 1,000+ person events. Do we have any? Several of you. Wonderful. What about more than 5,000? 10,000? Cool. Okay, cool. Good. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to jump right on in. Logistics. We really call ourselves a logistics company often because, as you know, logistics really are the backbone of large-scale catering, and a good plan usually means a good event. And so starting with space analysis and equipment needs, something to note too with several of our examples is that these are in non-traditional spaces for catering. So we are typically not doing these events in a space that has this large commercial kitchen available to us. We're doing them in large event spaces that can handle the people, but we are oftentimes having to design our space to be able to set up our kitchen, set up our serving methods, seating, chairs, tents, whatever that may be. So we're going to kind of treat this a little bit like a panel discussion today as well. And so if one of you could please, maybe Steve, if you will kind of walk us through what are some of the first things that you're looking for in a non-traditional space when we're analyzing the space? What are those things that we're looking at first?
So, obviously we look for attendance first, and we try to get a number, try to work with the client, and then also we're looking for what their vision is for their event. Is it a food event mainly? Is it a food event with some entertainment? Is it a lunch break? Well, we do a lot of lunch break work, and it's a shift at noon and 6 p.m. and 1 o'clock in the morning. So we do a lot of that. So when we look at the event space that we have, and my partner's got 30 plus years in the events business. So I'm going to let him run with some of this more. But when we look at that, we look at what that guest experience is going to look like. And we look at it from the time whether or not they drove there, parked, and walked in, or whether or not they were shuttled there, which happens a lot, or they walked out the back door of a plant, office building, a hospital, whatever it is. We start there and what that's going to look like for them. And then based on, like Mary Evelyn said, we are not in traditional spaces. Man, we get spoiled. When we show up somewhere, it's usually a fairgrounds or something like that that has a commercial kitchen with an ice machine. We get all giddy and excited because we don't have that generally where we are. We show up in parking garages, we're on bare grounds in front of somebody's plant, or we're in there parking on the backside. We've been in fields before. We've been undercover. We've been, in all kinds of locations. So I'm going to turn it over to Lee more about what we do from a site plan.
Yeah, this particular event, you may notice it's a stadium setting. This happens to be WVU University up in Morgantown, West Virginia. And originally we started doing this event in a big open field, and that's been several years ago, but like many institutions and hospitals, they've grown, and so the field disappeared. So they have a very close relationship with the stadium, obviously. And so we went over there, we moved over there about 5 or 6 years ago. But it creates its own logistic hurdles, and that is, if you've been to any stadium, the concourse is only so wide, right? So in this particular case, the hospital sits across the parking lot, so employees of West WVU Medicine get in a shuttle bus and come over, and they're unloaded 2 flights of steps down. So they come up the steps and come into the event, and again, it's only as wide as the concourse. And I'll give you, just trying to use an analogy, we're almost in like one end of the end zone, right, from where the concourse is. So we go all the way to probably the 50-yard line with tables and chairs and the buffet set up. But our cooking is on the other person's 40-yard line outside. So we have a challenge logistically of getting the food prepped into the concourse and to the line. So what we've done is there's a little alcove that sits where people get the elevator, come upstairs, handicap elevator. So there's an area that we create a staging area. And so we put that product in there, and it goes from, so we fulfill the staging area. And I say all that just to talk through, when we talk about feeding that many people, you've got to have enough space, you've got to have enough production equipment, and enough buffet lines. And we're limited with buffet lines with that because of the width of the concourse, or the concourse. So we're constantly fulfilling those lines from our staging area and pushing people through. It's really important when you talk about that many people that you spread out your area so we can basically push 3 people through, get the condiments away and the drinks away from the buffet line, and then move them onto the seating area. And in this particular event, you can't see it, but you might in some additional pictures, we also do a piece of entertainment. So they do allow their employees to come out, have a meal, and we have concessions. We actually serve the concessions out of their concession stands, which kind of helps us. But then past that, kind of going to the opposite end of the concourse on the other end of the field, we have a bunch of entertainment there. They have live music. Sometimes they have DJ, they have photo ops, and they do a really, really good job of doing their own decor. Every year they have a theme. This year in July it's Willy Wonka, but we've done Harry Potter, we've done several themes.
This one on the screen was Alice in Wonderland. Yeah.
And the other thing with that is the communication of an event that size. And actually for this is a pretty compact area for us. We use radios. We all have the earbuds. We walk around with, talking to each other through those things to get stuff to and from. We have, and we'll talk about our staff in a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about equipment, but that is important. There's we have our large event, and they have beans on their event, and Beans on 3 is definitely something that anybody that's worked at RH Events over the years would know, any of our alumni,
So let's jump into talking about timeline a little bit. There's a few things, when we say timeline, we're talking about the timeline of the day, but then also leading up to that event. And most of the time, the timeline of your day is going to determine how you get there, right? So there's a big difference in catering an event where you're feeding thousands of employees that maybe have a 30-minute lunch break versus an event where you're feeding thousands of employees who are there on a Saturday to enjoy a family day. And so this is just a general timeline we follow. Of course, understanding the client vision and the objective of the event is most important. As I mentioned, is this a quick lunch break that we're celebrating? Is this something that they're going to spend a little more leisurely time at? From there, we design our menu, and I'm going to keep going for a minute, but don't let me forget, we're going to come back to talking about designing menu and how we help our clients get to that decision there. Once we've got that menu design, we get into planning our equipment needs, which we will also touch on, and staffing our event. From there, we design our site layout. So as I mentioned, in these untraditional spaces, we've got a plan. Where is the power and water? If there is no power, how are we bringing it? How many generators do we need? Where is that going to be set up? Where are we going to serve them? Where are they going to sit to enjoy it? And so we map a site layout before arriving on the event to set up. From there, we order our food. We build our load list, so everything that's getting loaded on our trucks. And then what we do is called Ready to Roll. We essentially have a system to check in with all of our clients, our vendors, our staff, just to make sure everybody is ready to roll and get this event going. We typically do event setup the day before if we can, or several days before, and then we run our event. So let's go back though to menu. When we're talking about menu design, Lee, can you talk us through a little bit how you help our clients get to a decision that's going to build a menu that is going to create the most efficient serving and also the best menu for their audience?
Sure. So there's so many options, but typically we're an outdoor caterer. Our typical menu is hamburgers, hot dogs, barbecue, chicken tenders, coleslaw, baked beans, hot sides, cold sides, mac and cheese, etc. But it's really important to understand the menu and how it holds and how it handles being, presented at a buffet over time. And so all those things are important. So we know based on experience at an event like we're talking about WVU, it's not going to sit there for a long time, right? It's going to be consumed pretty readily. And our biggest issue is making sure we have the production schedule to match the attendance that we expect. Conversely, on a picnic, it's over typically 4 hours. So even though it may be 2,000 people, it's not going to be that rush of 1,000 people in the first, hour. And so we do have menus that hold better than others. So it's our job to help our clients and sometimes just offer them some, choices or recommendations based on what their vision is. But we do a lot of events where we have product that holds very well. There's others that don't, and we just got to be aware of it and make sure that we do it in a very timely manner.
Touch base for a second on your philosophy on sides and the number of sides on an event. Yeah.
So we serve when we design our menu, and our agreement says it's unlimited food, okay? So everybody, that kind of is very concerning to a lot of people. However, we will not run out of food, but the more options you give a client, the more susceptible you are of running out of food. If we have 3 sides, baked beans, coleslaw, and mac and cheese, easy. But if you turn that into 6 sides, if the mac and cheese, which historically is one of the more popular, we're going to run out of that and have tons of other menu items left. So we always, educate our clients, if you will, about what is best for them and keep it to a minimum if possible is our recommendation.
The other thing that too, you're in, and you guys that do these large events understand this, and with any event, you're balancing production with food integrity, because what you don't want is something sitting on that five wide line that's been there since 10 o'clock in the morning, and somebody shows up at 12:45. But you've all been there. We call it, when Braveheart comes over the hill and you're like, oh my gosh. And, you don't also want to run out of something, because there's no worse feeling to go to, an event and you see them coming and somebody comes to you and goes, we're out of something, whatever it is. So it's a balance between those things, and it's more difficult with the number. It's more difficult with the larger event than it is with a more manageable, couple hundred people event. So not to discount those, because what we do is we look at those large events, and equipment that you have will probably go there next, and then staffing that you have are all instrumental there. And one last thing on that timeline, on the setup and the setup day, with a number of our events, or with most, probably 90%, 95% of our events, we have a team that goes and sets up prior to the event, whether it's tables, chairs, buffet lines, kitchen, all of that stuff. Everything's set up and tested before our delivery team even gets there. And so that's been, and that is one thing with most of our clients that we pretty much demand, especially if it's a large event, that we've got a lot of pieces to move. And if it's one 26-foot box truck or two, we've done events with 3, then we also want to make sure that we got plenty of time for our setup. So
the other thing I would add is a lot of these are out of town. Again, we're in Atlanta, and we put our equipment on a truck, and the roads, they can jostle and bump around. So we actually do test. We fire up every grill, every fryer, every flat top, every boiler, whatever we're bringing, and make sure it works the day before, to make sure that we're good and ready to go. It's just one of our protocols.
On that note, can you talk a little further about what it is? When we're talking about equipment needs in setting up our kitchen, what does that typically involve when we're talking about these off-site events?
Well, you look at the menu, and then you look at the attendance and how many lines we're having, and kind of work toward a production schedule. And based on that production schedule and when that product should be ready, dictates how many grills, fryers, boilers, flat tops that we need. So we do our internal math, if you will, that this grill can put out X amount of product in an hour, and we need X product put out at the start. And that also helps us determine staff needed as well, to make sure that we are fully prepared for the number of people that will be attending. And the good news is, a lot of our clients we've done year after year, it's always kind of an unknown. We have new clients, especially a bigger new client, to know what we've done. The other large event that we've done, we've worked with them over 15 years, which is another hospital system in Atlanta. You may have some pictures of that, but it's the 26,000 plus event that we do. But we've done that event for so long that we almost know what to expect. So
the other pieces of equipment that are important that we use a lot of refrigerated trucks. Since we're on site, we'll even turn the back of a refrigerated truck into a prep area, and utilize that as far as our prep and some of our hold for our cold items. We use the big shipping cubes that you'll see that people wrap up and they ship something with dry ice. We use a lot of dry ice on our events, because we might be taking these shipping cubes, and you may see 4 shipping cubes backed up against the truck that have product in them with dry ice on them. Not always a fan of wet ice. My partner over here is not. But we use a lot of pieces like that to kind of support, whether it's refrigerated pieces, certainly warmers, a lot of warmers. Can't wait to go see the guys at Cambro in there, talk to them, because we use a lot of those pieces for them. So that has a lot to do with, basically, like I said, just that managing that production versus food integrity.
Let's get into staffing. So this is the general flow of staff that we follow. We have a lead manager who oversees the whole event and who is the one who primarily does most of the talking with our client. We have event managers who are part of our team that's highly trained, highly experienced, who oversee our event staff. And so this is a general model that we follow. Steve, can you talk us through a little bit more about how these event managers are managing these different components and how we determine these ratios for staff?
So one of the things that Lee's been in this business for a long, long, long time, and we've been at it for 15 years together at RH Events. And one of our kind of credos is that the more event managers and the more staff, the easier the event can be. It just gives you an opportunity to catch up, or it gives you an opportunity to events can be stressful. It's one of the highest stress things that you can do in a career. And so we want to try to make it as easy as we can. We treat our event managers as well as we can. We'd like to pay them above market. We like to make sure that they have plenty of people on site. But for a typical 1,000-person event, there may only be 4 to 6 RH employees an event on that staff, and so we train them. We spend a lot of time training them as Lee mentioned. Something we know what a grill can produce. We know what a flat top can produce. We know what a boiler can produce in an hour basis, and our managers know that, and they're constantly talking to the lead. And then we go to the lowest common denominator, which is our staff, which is kind of the tip of the spear. And we have a unique method of staffing our events in that we use a lot of volunteer organizations throughout our footprint. And so we may staff a 1,000-person event with a ROTC group from a local high school. And it works for us because we do a really good job of communicating. We do a good job of vetting, and then they stick with us because they can make a lot of money for their organization in a short period of time, and not have to, sell Coke or Tides or whatever else they have to do. So
we say volunteer group, but we do donate to their organization as part of that partnership there. So we've done several different, he mentioned ROTCs, a lot of times it's high school booster clubs. We've used different church groups, other nonprofits, to just kind of fill the gaps and have our event managers oversee those people.
Yeah, I'll also add that is a selling point from our salespeople. When we go to a local community and talk about doing an event with us, we're going to talk about the donation that we're going to give to that group in the area on behalf of their company. And we try to make a big deal out of it. After the event, we'll present a check. Our client is usually there for the handoff of the check, and we will present that check on site to the volunteer group. And like I said, it's a great community involvement, and it also is something our clients embrace as well.
And now we do use some temp staffing that's out there. There's a lot of hospitality temp staffing. Gig Pro, who in here uses Gig Pro for some of their events? We utilize those too. We have some that like to follow us around. They like to go wherever we go because they know we treat them well. We really respect the people that are out there doing the work out there for us. And Lee and I are on events, and Mary Evelyn's on events. Everybody in our company is required to be on some events during the course of the year so that we have a taste of everything that's going on with our event managers and with our staffing groups that we have.
All right, so moving on to event day execution and talking about serving methods, quality control. So we mentioned we use buffet lines. We love a buffet line at RH Events and Catering. And Lee, can you talk a little bit more about why we choose that model and then how we do that in terms of time adjustments and crowd adjustments?
Sure. So buffet lines help us create the biggest opportunity to get a lot of people through the line in a very efficient manner. So they're the best, and having enough people on the buffet lines is also, we talked about more people, more staff equals smoother event. And so we can really push people through the line very quickly, provided the back of the house is getting us what we need, and we can get the product to the line readily available and quickly. And then the number of people, handing out the food, and all those are, pieces to make a successful event. And again, I talked about it earlier, just getting them through, putting your condiments and putting your drinks, kind of moving them through and leaving enough space. This one is interesting. In two of our biggest hospitals, the one in Atlanta and this one, we've even, and this is done really from a client's perspective, they've wanted us to almost we have a traffic cop almost. And what I mean by that is on this one, as I mentioned, they come up 2 steps. And once they get up to the top, they walk about 10 feet, and then the concourse widens out. So we leave our buffet lines enough rooms to where they can go to the left once they come up the line. So we've got people on the steps going, go up and go left, and that's dictated really from our client just to get people moved through the line. They're talking with their peers, and they're not really paying attention, and so we're constantly moving them to tighten up, get to the shorter line, and we do that also at at Wellstar, which is our other large client in the Atlanta area. Same thing. They wanted us to add people just to push people through the lines, and it worked really. It was last year. Last year was the first time we've done it on both these events, and we got people through the lines a lot faster.
And that's the production side of it, is to be able to move and get them through, and that's what we're well known for. And I'll ask you in a little bit to tell the story about the first time we did the West Virginia event. But then the food integrity side is the other thing, and we use lines. We use our lines initially for that maybe hot and cold hold. That is not even an open line, and we might use 2 of those but we're constantly taking that food off of those lines, and then we're replenishing those lines if they're not open. And so it allows us to have kind of a staging area in the buffet area, and it also allows us to kind of protect the integrity of the food. So when that Braveheart group is coming out at lunch, and they got 39 minutes for lunch, and they're all coming at the same time, then that traffic cop is standing there, and we go open up 4 or 5 lines. I think the 3 of us last year were on an event with 4,000 people, and we were the ones operating those lines as they opened up. And you guys all know, it looks and you feel like it's forever, but it might be 15, 20, 30 minutes tops that you have that rush, and then it's going to kind of dwindle back down. So it's always interesting to see the newer event managers almost get to a panic position, and that it's going to pass. This is going to pass. We just got to hang with it, and so we monitor constantly the client, because that's who dictates if they get nervous and like you need to open up more, we'll open them all up and get busy. But we use that as a method of, as Lee said, production, but secondly, as a method for us to maintain food integrity. I don't want that hamburger that was cooked early in the morning, one of the first burgers, to be sitting on the line at the end of the event. So tell them that WVU story.
Oh, yeah. So it's been several years ago. WVU started outside, and so we were setting up the day before, and they have a very huge campus, and they had officers, university officers, and when we were setting up the field, we were on one of the roads, obviously, that came by the area we were setting up, and they were blocking off one lane of traffic with cones, and it was probably a quarter mile. And so I'm like, what is going on with the cones? Is there something going on that I'm not aware of? And they go, no, that's where the line was last year. And so WVU is in Morgantown, pretty small town, relatively speaking, and basically the local caterer, they outgrew the local caterer, and they hung on as long as they could, and that's how we ultimately got in there. But so we set up about maybe 20 yards in the field. they had a 40 by 140. We did our buffet lines, and then they had a 40 by 140 tent for the guests. And so our challenge or our goal was to never, and then we had 20 yards, and then there was a parking lot. So our challenge and our goal was to never get guests standing in the parking lot when they came out. So no more than 20 feet or 20 yards. That would be the acceptable distance of the line that we felt, and we accomplished that. And then we never had anybody waiting in line in the parking lot. We kept them all in the same field that we set it up. So that was a challenge, and we still do the same thing. But that one was easier than the stadium because we had more width in the number of buffet lines. So.
Yeah, we mentioned.
We are going to do some questions. I've seen your hand. We are going to. I promise we'll get to you.
Well, at least some time for Q&A. We talk about the guest experience a lot in RH, and that's a big part of the guest experience. Is we're really big on people not having to wait in line for food. We've all been to an event or a wedding where they just start calling people off, and you're in line forever. What it feels like, right? And so our goal is to have the shortest wait time, and for the first person in the line and the last person in the line to have the same food experience. And so is there anything I'm missing when we're talking about guest experience specifically?
Yeah, we'll touch more on guest experience, but how many people have been to a wedding and thought, oh, man, they have really screwed the pooch on this one? I was an accountant and came into the events business and the catering business with my partner here, and I told him after the first year, I'm like, I can't go to weddings anymore because I critique the lines, I critique the stations, the wait, where the drinks are located, all of those things. We all do it, I know. So, but guest experience, as Mary Evelyn said to start with, we are an events company first. We could learn so much from you guys out there that have the culinary experience that we don't have with us, but we have in-house with some of our people. But we think about that guest, and we think about that everything. And my partner has something here that he says, everything matters. And on these large events, when it's spread out and you're on an acre or two, everything matters becomes magnified. Trash, we came to the sustainability event because we wanted to sit in our room and see what it was going to look like. But we also are interested in that, and it's like trash. A typical wedding, 400 pounds of trash, we're thousands of pounds. We get sometimes dumpsters brought on site. Most times dumpsters are on site for us to put our trash in. So everything, you want to touch on everything matters?
Yeah, it's about the experience. It could be food related, but it's not necessarily food related. Could be parking. Could be I got here with my family, I can't find a place to park. Could be restrooms are dirty. Could be the buffet tents got trash in it, or the tables have not been bussed. Has nothing to do with the food, but it's all about the experience. And we feel like that we come from from the event perspective that, it kind of everything matters. And so that's kind of how we treat every event is, and it doesn't matter. We could be at a park, we could be at a fairgrounds, or we could be at a client site, but we're going to pick up the trash. We're going to do whatever it takes to deliver a positive guest experience, regardless of whose fault it is or whose responsibility it is, and that's a really important part of what we do.
Lee and I get on events a lot of times, and we get to be on the presentation. We're the presentation manager. And what that is the trash guy. And it's because we really do look around. We don't want trash coming out of the top of a can or on the ground or on a table.
So after every event, we have a debrief with our team, especially because several of the clients we have are repeat clients, and we're always trying to make our systems more efficient and more successful here. So we're always debriefing and kind of documenting metrics, if you will. If you guys will kind of talk through what are some of those big points we're looking at and determining what was successful, but then also determining those areas that needed improvement.
Sure. I think the first step is getting with our client, our internal client and our client. And so we typically will have a meeting and talk about what went well, what did not go well, if anything, what they would change, any pressure points that they had, any issues, and then certainly get with our client and get feedback. And we like to give the client a couple of days for them to get their feedback. You know, we receive it on site from our client. We receive it on site sometimes from even the guests thanking us for the event. But certainly having a few days for it to get the feedback, and then we set up a formal conference call with our client and talk about what went well, what they would change, what they would do different. A lot of times it's menu items. This didn't go as well as we had hoped, was not as popular. Ideas for next year. Sometimes we didn't have enough seating. Sometimes we may need to add a buffet line or whatever, just based on the feedback and based on what our people come back with.
And then what our people come back with is the most important to us and to me at that point, because I'm more involved in production than what we do. He's more involved in sales, as you could probably hear. But what we want to know is, did we have enough equipment? Did we have enough grill? Did we have enough storage? Did we have enough space? Did we have enough, buffet lines? People, our staffing? Was our staffing adequate? Were there, gig pros or temp companies that we want to definitely, enhance and develop a longer relationship with? How did our event managers do? Did they have enough managers? Were they taxed on their time and their efforts because we didn't provide them with enough people or enough time to get everything done? All of those things are kind of calculated. Did we produce what we needed to produce from a food standpoint? Did we produce too much? How much waste did we have? All of that is kind of gathered and debriefed and calculated so that we're constantly trying to know. And I tell our people all the time, I want to be the company that knows. I want to know how many hamburgers or chicken breasts or whatever that we can do in an hour with Dad from the band booster club, if that's what we're using that day, or if we've got a gig pro chef on site, or one of our event managers is on site as a chef. So we constantly are gaining that feedback so that we can, as Elise said, provide it to the client and enhance their event and their activity. But from our standpoint, we want to make it easier on our managers if we can. We want to make it as profitable as we can, because we all know waste, what we order, what we send as far as staff, labor, all of those things. If you can tighten those screws just a little bit, there's a lot of profitability that's left out there.
So before we wrap up and take your questions, if you scan the QR code, that just takes you to a page where you can connect with us. It has all 3 of our emails on there, and it takes you straight to our website. If for some reason it's not working for you, you can also just go to yesrh.com. And there's a couple of different ways we'd love to stay in touch with you. One is if you're interested in just scaling your events to a larger scale, we're happy to share more information with you on some of these specific pieces we have. We mentioned our ready to roll. We have documents that we fill out and follow, what some of our site maps look like. We're happy to share that information if there's more that you would like to see. Another thought is, if you are in a position where you are getting these leads and these clients who are asking for thousands and thousands of people that you just don't feel quite prepared to do yet, we would love to partner with you on that and see if there's ways that we could work together to bring that event to fruition. And is there anything I'm missing?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that, because we really appreciate this event. I hope that you continue to support this event. We appreciate what CaterSource has done. Mary Evelyn and I kind of collaborated last year. It's like, do we want to go? Lee and I came last year when we were in Florida. I think we were in Fort Lauderdale last year. And we gained some valuable insight. And to the extent we are a national company, and she is our media manager and does a tremendous job, we get leads from all across the United States. And obviously, it's not economical for us to go everywhere. And sometimes it's an 80-person wedding in Chicago that somebody calls. But we don't just discard that. We pass that on. So we are looking for reciprocal relationships with people all across the United States that we can go, hey, we have a lead for an 80-person event in, LaGrange, outside of Chicago. We're not going to come do that. It's not economical for us to come do that. But I certainly can pass it on. We have, if anybody from Blue Plate in here, we've passed leads to Blue Plate from this event that we were at last year with somebody. So That's a great way for either reciprocal, if you're not going to do a large event, but somebody approaches you to go, hey, I wanted to do, can you do my 2,000 person company picnic? Well, you know somebody that can, and we're willing to partner with you. You can have your name on it if you want, and we'll come behind and do the bones. So we're looking for anything that's along that type of relationship. We hope that those of you that do the large events got something from us. I know this, we could learn a lot more from this crowd than you guys could learn from the three of us up here. And so we appreciate if you got something from it, thank you for that and letting us know. If it's something you want to look into, like Mary Evelyn said, and kind of expand your offerings, we're glad to help. We realize that we all kind of need a little bit of a boost sometime. This is an area of a specialty of ours. All of our emails are going to be are on that QR code. Please feel free, and we will get back to you.
Let's take some questions. Right here.
This person right here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
She first started.
Yes, you did. Go right there.
So we have a database of all of the products that we use and the allergens to it, and all of our event managers have those, and it's on site with them. We use Connect Teams is the software platform or the app that we use for hours and scheduling and shifts. So all of that information is available on every event that is on site. The other thing we do is signage, which is probably the easiest thing that you can do, is have signage on events to let people know what what the allergens are available with that. So it's hard to do on larger events, and believe me, at Notre Dame, I know you guys are doing some big stuff, and so but those are the course of actions that we take. All of our managers are ServSafe certified, and we look to expand. We caution against playing a doctor on event site. We don't like to do that, doctor or nurse, but we certainly want to let people know what's in the products that we're using.
So how do you generate layout and load lists? Is it automated, or does somebody mechanically kind of go through the site to lay it out? How many lines you're going to have, how many spoons, how many shaking stands, etc.
Yeah, some of it's automated, but it first starts with a boots on the ground layout. So when we get a client, we will do a walk of the grounds and talk about where we're setting up. And then at that time, obviously, it's probably a contract, and we know what we're serving. So we design a layout based on the attendance and based on the menu that we will be serving. And from that, there is some formulas we use, and we are working on a project just this year to automate more of what we're doing. So that's a great question.
He
is involved heavily in that new program. And
we're looking at a platform that we're using. Exactly. Yeah. We're looking at a platform.
How do they get their information so they know to get it all on the truck and you don't get there and you're short 6 shakings?
Manually today in a load list. We've got some templates of load lists based on attendance, based on number of sides, based on the menu. And so that's how we're doing it today, but that's where we're moving, is to more of that automation. I'm the guy in the office that's going, we're behind today if you're not looking at what is available with, the new thing is AI and it's taking this and taking that. If you're not looking at that, I don't know if you're not using it, but if you're not looking at it and studying how that can be a part of your business in the future, then we're not going to be the company that knows, and we're not going to be the company that kind of leads the way. So we're pushing that envelope, and honestly, we're catching up, because those load lists right now are templates that are manual, and we literally have our food purchasing guy comparing those and then distributing that to our warehouse.
Depends on the menu. It really depends on the menu. You know, there's a difference between serving baked beans and serving chicken tenders. So we try to we do a little bit of both. A lot of it is, again, we talk about the client vision. A lot of it is talking with them about their vision. You know, we love the ability to have an attendant at every station serving. It certainly controls food, but we also, we typically will put the items that need to be handled at the front of the line, because we haven't talked about it, but when we have that oh crap moment and the lines are backed up, we will shift and send people down both sides of the line for maybe 15 minutes just to get it caught up, and then go back to the attendant. So we're just kind of watching the lines to make sure it needs to be replenished over their shoulders so we can get the guests through. Again, one of our biggest selling points, if you will, is feeding a large amount of people and doing it without long lines and very efficiently.
And you better quote it right, because you know that the labor can really just eat into your profitability there, and so it needs to be kind of prepared for that. If you know the client, if you know, like West Virginia, like they had a line out in the parking lot, well, guess what? We're gonna staff that more, because we want those people moving. We're gonna have somebody on everything, and then it also may be food waste that you want to control. You want to portion control. We all talk about that. So there's so many factors into it, and you know, we look at it almost as kind of a challenge to move and adjust and change what we're doing, and be able to do that. And it's just a matter of planning. If you plan to be able to adjust, you can do that.
The other thing we did last year, for the first time, and it was really client-driven. We'd like to take credit for it, but it's client-driven. And that is, we doubled and tripled Schaefer's. Like last year at our largest location, instead of having, you know, Schaefer, we had 2 or 3 Schaefer's of hamburgers and 2 or 3 Schaefer's. And we extended our buffet line by like 12 feet. We had 2 more 6-foot tables. It was a long line, but we were able to it helped.
So we are at time, and out of respect for the next speaker, we're going to wrap it up. But we will stick around a little bit. If you guys have more questions, we'll stick around. Thank you so much for joining us today, and do stay in touch.